Welcome to Trails from DuPage, where we explore the many great biking trails in DuPage County and the surrounding counties. Today we're going to look at a route that runs from Wheaton to Wisconsin, all the way to the Wisconsin border. It's actually easier to ride to the Wisconsin border than it is sometimes to ride around town. We will explore three connecting trails: the Illinois Prairie Path, the Fox River Trail, and the Illinois Prairie Trail. For the length of the three trails, we'll actually only be traveling on roadways less than 1 or 2% of the total length. Everything is going to be on trails, which is quite amazing considering how far we're going to go. And the other thing to consider here is that this is a 52-mile one-way trip, so you would want to make arrangements for having somebody pick you up, unless you're up for what they call a century ride, where you will ride up and back, which would be over 100 miles. Our trip is going to be 52 miles one way. We're starting in Wheaton and traveling north along the Elgin Branch of the Illinois Prairie Path. The Prairie Path is a straight trail on packed gravel, and it goes 14 miles before it connects with the Fox River Trail. The only tricky section is here at Prince Crossing Road, where the trail joins up with the Great Western Trail. The Forest Preserve has combined the two trails here for a short section from Prince Crossing down to where they originally crossed each other. You'll want to make a right turn when you get to that intersection. Where you're to go straight, the Great Western Trail basically ends. If you had wanted to go on the Great Western Trail all the way to Sycamore, you would have to pick it up again out in St. Charles. One thing about this route is that on all three trails, every major road crossing is completely protected. That is, you're either in a tunnel, a bridge, or at the very least a stoplight, although there aren't too many of those even. Here we've just crossed under North Avenue and then also over Route 59. Just a couple of tips about taking this route. I prefer traveling it from Wheaton towards Wisconsin as opposed to the other way around, and I'll explain later in the video why that is so. And the other thing is, it's worthwhile to take a look at the wind direction. You are traveling quite a distance, and there will be a lot of open farmland area, so headwinds could really be troublesome for you. At Pratt Swain's Woods, we are crossing into Kane County. The Prairie Path does extend for another 4 miles into Kane County before connecting with the Fox River Trail. However, shortly after the border crossing, you do start riding on a paved trail. Each succeeding trail going north becomes a little bit better than the previous trail. You'll notice that Kane County has installed a few roundabouts along on the trails. Do obey the traffic directions. Don't try to take shortcuts, because there may be oncoming traffic. There are more and more bikers on the trails these days. This is a fairly level route all the way, with some exceptions. After passing under 25 and crossing this small bridge here, you'll find that the trail basically slopes down slightly towards the Fox River. The Prairie Path ends at this roundabout right at Poplar Creek. You can either choose to go south to Oswego or up to Algonquin, which is the full length of the Fox River Trail. The Fox River Trail in its full length is a little over 30 miles. However, on this route, we will only be traveling the last 11 miles until we reach McHenry County. You enter the downtown Elgin area at the Grand Victoria Casino. You can stop here. There are restaurants on the right and casino on the left. They also have drinking fountains. They do a great job separating motorists from bicyclists from pedestrians here. Traveling through Elgin is very easy. You follow the path right along the river, and it actually takes you down along the river underneath the cross streets, so there is no cross traffic for you to deal with. When you get to the other end of downtown, the path will bring you back up, and you will be at Walton Park, which is two islands in the middle of the river, and they are connected. You will pass right by them. The trail will bring you up to Kimball Street. Now, don't try to cross right in the middle of the block. Take the sidewalk bike path to the light and cross at the light. Now here, technically, the trail curves back around the public library. I find it easier just to ride down Grove Street. It's not too busy, or you could stay on the sidewalk. The two routes merge right after the public library parking lot. The trail will work its way down to the river again, right at the sewage treatment plant, and you follow the path along the west side of the sewage treatment plant, between the sewage treatment plant and the river. Now there is a historic section of Elgin here. There's a brick road they preserved, Spring Street I guess it's called. There's one more historic site along the trail here. It's called Pratt's Castle. If you see Cedar Avenue, you may want to take a look over towards the riverside. You'll see a small castle built within the subdivision. It is private property, so you should respect the owners of the property. If you did not start your bike ride too early, pretty soon you would be at East Dundee. And here is a first opportunity to really stop and pick up some refreshments. There are two ice cream stores, a Dairy Queen and another ice cream parlor, as you cross Main Street at the light. But if you're in the mood for something a little bit more substantial, just hang on for about 8/10 of a mile until you're in the downtown area, and there's Duke's Barbecue where you can sit outside. And also in this plaza area there are a number of other restaurants that you could actually go to and get refreshments. Leaving the downtown East Dundee area, you travel through the neighborhoods on the path, and it crosses quite a number of small side streets. There's not heavy traffic here, but just be cautious as you cross the streets. It's not too far from East Dundee to Carpentersville. At Main Street, Carpentersville, is Main Street Bicycle Shop. It's an excellent bicycle shop in case you need a repair, or even if you want a new bicycle for that matter. Just across the street on Main Street is Auto Engineering. Auto Engineering owns quite a bit of property down along the river, and they've kind of converted it into a beautiful park, so this is a wonderful stretch to be bicycling along. Every town along the route, of course, has their restaurants located on or near the path. Carpentersville, however, is the last town that you'll pass through before finishing the Fox River Trail. Should you be in need of a rest break before you reach Algonquin, there is one more forest reserve, Fox River Shores, that you'll pass along on the path, where they have both water and restroom facilities. At Long Meadow Parkway is a good example of how cities and counties are now making it easier to use your bikes. Here they've built a brand new overpass with a separate bike lane under the bridge, making it very easy for bikes and pedestrians to enjoy the Fox River Trail. Next up is East County Line Road, and this is the halfway point on the trip to Wisconsin. We are leaving the Fox River Trail as we cross East County Line Road and entering McHenry County and the Illinois Prairie Trail. And you'll see a dramatic upgrade in trail conditions at this point. Now you have better striping, you have a lot of more signage along the road telling you all about hazards and other conditions as you bike your way towards Wisconsin. The Illinois Prairie Trail is exactly that. You're going to be entering a lot of prairie from here on in. However, there is one last crossing of the Fox River as you enter into Algonquin. If you have traveled this route in years past like I have, you will notice here a decidedly big upgrade in the trail conditions, which has been done in just the last few years. Your passage through Algonquin across routes like Route 31 has been made very simple. Restaurants in Algonquin is off the trail. I would say maybe about a quarter of a mile. I have not actually been down there, but you would simply take the sidewalk down to the downtown area. The path, however, continues along Route 31, and then it travels up, well, at first it travels underneath Route 31 in a new underpass, and then it has kind of a serpentine trail that brings you up to a higher elevation as you continue your route north towards Crystal Lake. Next along on the route will be Crystal Lake. Now, in years past, Crystal Lake used to be a bit of a challenge to get through because the trail was not well marked. And even today, if you were to use Google Maps or Apple Maps or something like that to plan out a route bicycling, they would give you some misdirection here in Crystal Lake. And I'll point those out as we go along. But here at Virginia Avenue, you would cross over, and you actually have to go diagonally across the intersection, so either way would be fine. Once you pass under Route 14 Northwest Highway, you'll be traveling along Main Street. And the next big intersection you come to is Crystal Lake Avenue. Now, if you were to follow Google Maps, they would tell you to go straight along Main Street until you got up to Illinois 176. However, the trail actually goes east along Crystal Lake Avenue. So once you cross over here, make sure that you make a right turn and then cross Main Street and follow the sidewalk along Crystal Lake Avenue. At this point, you will be crossing two sets of railroad tracks. And as soon as you've crossed the second set of railroad tracks, the first street is East Street. You'll want to turn left on East Street, and you will see the bicycle route signs as you travel down the street. This is not a very busy street. This is the only section of the route where you will actually be traveling on roadways, and it's easy. It's well marked, so you will see when to turn. East Street will take you to Glen Avenue, which then in turn will bring you up to Route 176. At Route 176, the trail makes a slight jog over to Lorraine. And you would then take Lorraine Drive up, and you're again within a subdivision. And within this subdivision, you will find a small park. It's almost as if it's one vacant lot that's been taken out and made into a parking lot. And this is for access to a nature preserve that's right here. And I would recommend, strongly recommend, that once you pull into this parking lot, continue up the little paved trail, which is a continuation of the Illinois Prairie Trail. And right at the top of the hill, there is a bench. I would take my time and stop at this bench and just rest a little bit. You're about to enter the most exciting section of the whole ride. The next section of the trail is a glacial moraine which will drop several hundred feet, and this is the main reason why I would not want to travel this trail from Wisconsin back to Wheaton. It's a narrow trail with fairly steep grades, very exciting to ride, but it could be slippery if there's a lot of leaves on the roadway. Now, that being said, it's not all downhill. There are a couple of sections of slight uphill and one pretty big uphill. Just when you think you're done, you're not. There's still more downhill to go. You will really enjoy this section of the ride, but when you get to the power lines, make sure you have a little energy in reserve, because this is where you're going to be pedaling up a fairly steep grade, but it's only one steep grade. I have to say that unfortunately I got tuckered out halfway up the slope. I ended up walking my bike up. This has never happened to me before. When you get to Hillside Avenue, your exciting roller coaster ride is finally over. At this point, there is only one major town, McHenry, and two smaller hamlets, Ringwood and Richmond, left on the ride. You have a ways to go. The trail at this point parallels the railroad tracks. At times it zigzags from the one side to the other side, but basically it's a flat trail going straight north. This is where the Prairie and Illinois Prairie Trail comes in. At McHenry, the trail veers away from the railroad tracks and onto Mill Street, where there is a painted lanes. And just as you cross Crystal Lake Road, you will come to Fort McHenry, a very large playground, but also a wonderful place to stop. Now again, if you'd use Google Maps to plan your route, this is where you would also be steered astray. They would actually lead you out the parking lot drive and up to the main street. However, just use your common sense and follow the marked path. At the main street here, you will be able to press a button and cross the street in safety. Just 4 miles up the road from McHenry is the town of Ringwood. At this point, the pavement ends and the trail becomes a gravel trail again. Luckily, you're just 8 miles from reaching your destination in Wisconsin. The trail changes from forest preserve-like to more open prairie-like. It's a fairly flat trail. There's a little bit uphill. However, if you chose a day where there was a good, strong tailwind, you will be in good shape. Tyrone Grove Road at mile 48 marks the entrance to Richmond, the last town that you will pass through on your way to Wisconsin. Richmond ends at Route 173. If you are having somebody pick you up and it's going to be some time before they arrive, you may want to return back to Route 173, go a little bit east, and there's a McDonald's where you can sit down and rest, have some food, and just enjoy it while you're waiting for your ride. But we're in the final stretch now, and the path becomes rougher and rougher, so to speak. At the Wisconsin state line, you will notice that the trail is almost overgrown. This means that you are just about at the end of the trail. What appears to be the end of the trail is a curve in the trail and a slight uphill, and you will see this playground on the left, and then you will exit out on the street in Genoa City. you have now completed the 52-mile journey from Wheaton to Wisconsin. And if you're up for a century ride, you would turn around and head right back, covering the same area we just covered. Thank you for joining me in another episode of Trails from DuPage.